Alright, hey guys, today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I first saw this video on Grace with a Book in Her Face's channel, but the original creators are Chammy and Ellie from a book so fathomless. They have a joint blog, and I will link their blog and YouTube channels and all that stuff in the description below. And before I ramble for more than a minute, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. The first book is the best book that you've read in 2015, and that is without a doubt Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I read this book this month. I just finished it a few days ago, and you'll be hearing all about this book in my July wrap-up, but also I am doing a full video review on this book. It is the best book I have read this year, and it is actually without a doubt the best book I have ever read. I won't talk too much about this book because I am going to be talking about it twice in different videos, so I will just leave it at that, and when I have my reviews up, I will link them in the down bar below. But this is the best book that I have read in 2015, and definitely the best book I have ever read, so I highly, highly recommend it. This book would fall into several other categories on this list, but since I picked it as my favorite book from 2015, I am not going to put this for anything else, but just know that it would be my number one for a couple more of these questions if it were not already my favorite book of 2015. Best sequel. Oh man, there's so many. Do I want Prodigy or Finding It? Or Lover Awakened? I have to go with Lover Awakened because it's my favorite book. Question 2 is the best sequel that you've read in 2015, and that is definitely Lover Awakened by J.R. Ward. This is the third book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. This should not be a surprise to any of you if you've seen any other books on my channel. I'm obsessed with this series, and this is my favorite book in the series. I was going to try to pick something different by a different author that I haven't really talked about a lot on my channel, but this really was my favorite sequel that I read this year. It isn't technically the second sequel, but I'm assuming that sequel means a book that is not the first in a series. I hope that's okay. Otherwise, if it does have to be a sequel, then I would pick Prodigy by Marie Lu. So if it has to be the second book in a series, then it would be this one. Otherwise, I'm picking this. Question 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I guess the closest book that would fall into this category is The Ruby Circle by Rochelle Mead. This was released, I believe, in February or March or something like that, and I have yet to read it. It is the last book in the Bloodlines series by Rochelle Mead, and I haven't read it yet, but I really want to. I'm just putting it off because I don't want the series to be over yet. Question 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and that is definitely The Last Star by Rick Yancey. I read The Fifth Wave earlier this year, and until I read Ugly Love, that was actually my favorite book that I read in 2015. I have not yet read The Infinite Sea. Unfortunately, I heard that it was not as good as The Fifth Wave, so I really hope that I am the black sheep of the group and actually like it, but I haven't picked it up yet because I want to have the third book in my hands to read immediately after the second one, so I am just waiting to read that one. But my most anticipated release for the second half of the year is the third book in that series. I hope it comes out at the end of this year. I think I'm thinking of the right release date. Otherwise, it might be coming out at the beginning of next year, but I think it's coming out at the end of this year, so I hope I'm not wrong. Question 5 is your biggest disappointment. I've not really been disappointed by any books yet. It's not to say that I haven't read a book that I was less than thrilled with at all this year. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there weren't any books that I expected to be really amazing that actually weren't. I'm currently reading one that I expected to be amazing, and I'm so far not loving it, but I can't really count that because I might end up liking it in the end. So what I'm going to go with for this book is Rapture by Lauren Kate. It's the fourth book in the Fallen series. I wasn't expecting that one to be amazing, but I was still kind of disappointed in it, and especially the ending, so I'm just going to go with that book. Question 6 is your biggest surprise of the year, and I was quite surprised by a lot of the books that I read this year, but I think the biggest surprise that I've had so far, at least, was The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I was not expecting to like this book. I didn't even really want to read it because I was not super into what happened before the Throne of Glass series started, but I was actually really pleasantly surprised by this book. I loved it. I liked it more than Throne of Glass, and I think that this is definitely worth the read. Even though it's just a group of novellas, it is as big as a full-length novel, and all together the novellas are so good, and it's just a really great read, and I highly, highly recommend it. Number 7 is your favorite new author. Now, there are a couple authors I could pick for this one. For example, Colleen Hoover is a new favorite author after reading Ugly Love. I'm so excited to pick up more of her books. Another example would be J.R. Ward, who wrote the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, but again, I've already picked one of those books, so I don't want to keep being so repetitive, so I will go ahead and pick Cora Carmack, who has written the Losing It series. This is a new favorite series of mine, and I really, really love this series, and I'm definitely going to pick up anything else that she writes just to check out her writing and to get more of her romantic, beautiful stories. For newest fictional crush, I really, really, really want to go with Miles from Ugly Love, but again, I said I wouldn't repeat books. There are so many new fictional crushes for me of other books that I've read this year, including Zadist from Black Dagger Brotherhood. I'm going to go with Jackson Hunt from Finding It by Cora Carmack. I know I just talked about this series in the last question, but he is just so, so, so wonderful. He's perfect, but not too perfect, because you do find out that he has his own flaws. So he was real enough to be believable and relatable, but just so, so, so wonderful that you just can't help but want a man like him. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. Surprise, surprise, I am going with The Forever Song by Julie Kagawa. This was just so beautiful, and the ending was so wonderful, but it was also really, really sad, and I just love this book and this series. I talked about it in my May wrap-up. I believe it was my May wrap-up. This was just a really amazing story and a great series, and the ending was so wonderful that I cried. For a book that made you happy, I am going with Between the Lines by Jodi Picoult. Lots of books that I read this year have made me happy, including some of the ones that I've already picked, but I'm going to go with this one. I read this month as well, so you'll be hearing about it in my July wrap-up. This was just a really light, happy fairy tale story, and I love Disney and fairy tales, so this was right up my alley, and it just made me really happy to read, and the ending just had me smiling from ear to ear, so definitely this one. Question 12 is your favorite book to film adaptation that you've seen this year, and I didn't watch any book to film adaptations this year except for Maze Runner, and I just kind of feel like that was a kind of weird adaptation, but I didn't remember the book so much, so I don't really have one for that category. Question 13 is favorite review you've written this year, or favorite video you've done so far in this year. So I'm going to say my favorite video that I've done this year is one that I have not posted yet, and that is my Time of Day book tag. I'm just really proud of that one. I don't know why. Maybe because I picked some books that I hadn't talked about yet, and so I think it gave you guys a pretty good idea of some of the other books on my shelf that I either liked or didn't like that I haven't talked about yet, so I'm going to go with that one. You guys haven't seen it yet, but when I post it, I'll link it below. Question 14 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year. I don't know. Ooh! I don't remember if I bought this book this year. I feel like I might have bought it last year, but I can't remember. Yeah, I really don't remember, so I'm just going to go with In the Afterlife by Alexandra Bracken. I have not finished this series yet, but I'm really excited to because I loved the first one. But I'm going to go with this one. I think this one was really beautiful, and I mean, I like pretty much most of the covers of the books that I bought, otherwise I wouldn't have bought the ones that I did, but I'm gonna go with this one because it is really pretty. The last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And this is a little complicated because my tastes change from month to month. Right now I am super, super into new adult, so I just want to read all the Colleen Hoover books ever in existence, but two series that I definitely want to read by the end of the year are the Infernal Devices series and the Mortal Instruments series. I want to finish both of those by the end of the year, and I think that is very highly possible for me. I also really want to finish the Daughter Smoke and Bone trilogy. I have read the first one and loved it, and I am really, really, really excited to finish the trilogy, especially because my sister just finished the trilogy and really loved it. So I'm really, really, really excited to read and finish this as well. So there you have it. Those are the books that I'm putting in my mid-year book freakout. I thought this was such a fun tag, and I tag all of you guys who've been so kind to me on my channel and so welcoming. And if you do this video, please comment below and let me know that you've done it because I really would love to watch them. I hope you guys have a great day, and I wish you luck in your reading for the second half of July and the second half of the year, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye everyone!